Are you wondering what's going on with real estate right here at home in El Dorado County? Have you been watching the news and seen that Zillow says home prices are going to be down 1.7% across the board in America this year? And Redfin says 1 in 5 homeowners is planning to sell stocks to fund their down payment, but now their stocks are plummeting with the stock market. Or Redfin says 1 in 4 homeowners and home buyers are pumping the brakes right now because of economic uncertainty, and you don't know how to make sense of this or what's actually going on in the numbers. Well, then this video is for you. I'm going to go through the numbers for you right here in El Dorado County, starting at the county level and then going city by city in our major cities, so you can see what's actually happening right here, right now in our county and our towns. Look, the point of the news is to be salacious, to get your attention. And places like Zillow, they are taking a nowcast. They're looking at a snapshot of data right now and not really looking into the future of the past very much. And as such, they're not getting very accurate numbers. You can't tell me that, oceanfront property in Santa Cruz is going down 1.7% this year. I'll bet the farm that it's not. So any kind of blanket macroeconomic national data really has no impact on you here at home for the most part. And it doesn't help you make your buying and selling decisions. So as we're approaching the summer here, let's take a look back. We've got the March data. Let's look at what's actually happening in El Dorado County and our individual towns in real estate right now. So I'm going to share some charts with you so we can talk about them as we go along. All right, so we're going to start at the county level, like I said. So this is the market report for El Dorado County for March of 2025. Now you can see that existing single family home sales, we're only talking about single family here, they were up 10.5% year over year for 200 sales total for the month of March. Now, when you look at the stat just below that, active listings at 706 listings, that's countywide. Of course, most of our individual little towns aren't going to have that high of a number. They're up 41.8% year over year. Look, if you've made it this far and you're getting anything at all out of this video, hit the like button and click subscribe so you don't miss another video with crucial information to help you with your housing decisions. Now, in a normal market, well, not a normal market, in the market we've been having since COVID, where we have had record low inventories, less than 2 months of inventory in a lot of cases, and I'll talk a lot more about inventory as we go along here. We have had a static buyer pool. So anytime our listings number increased, our sales number increased, and all of those buyers jumped off the fence, gobbled up that existing inventory, and our inventory numbers stayed pretty much flat under 3 months, but for the most part under 2 months, all the way since 2020 in most of El Dorado County. Now, what you're seeing with these numbers here is a decoupling of those market mechanics, where normally we would see this active listing number, it's up 41%. We would see the active sales up nearly 41% as well. We would see buyers gobbling up those listings, and we're not. We've got a 30% delta between those two numbers. And that is because of what's going on in the economy right now. The FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. People are worried about losing their jobs. People are watching their 401ks plummet. Those buyers, those 1 in 5 buyers who were going to sell stocks to fund their down payment, well, the stock market has been down nearly 10% to 12%, depending on the day, year to date. So they lost a big chunk of their value in the markets, and they might not want to sell off at these prices. So even though we are finally seeing that lock-in effect easing, where people are willing to give up their pandemic era 3.5% interest rates and sell their homes, and so we're seeing more listings come on the market, we are not seeing the buyers gobbling those up because the buyers are nervous. Now, when we look at home prices, El Dorado County wide, you can see we're at $724,000 median home price for an increase of about 7% last year. That is great appreciation countywide. Although as we go city by city, you'll see not everyone benefited in the same way over last year. The other numbers you're seeing on your screen are average days on market at 28 days. That's still a really good sort of normal days on market. 30 days to get an offer on your home is pretty normal. In a buyer's market where there's a lot of inventory, those numbers go higher. And in the COVID market insanity, they were much lower. We had an average days on market of 7 or less in a lot of the county during the pandemic. So at 28, that is showing a little easing of the market, a little softening of the market. Sales to list price, we're at 99%. People are getting about what they're asking for their homes, although we are seeing chinks in the armor there too, a little bit of cracking and softening in the market, where, as you can see, 37.5% of active listings in Dorado County in March had at least one price reduction. So we are seeing price reductions coming back to the table over the last few months, which is something we really haven't seen very much of since we all went into lockdown in 2020. Right about now, you're wondering who I am and why you should be listening to me about Dorado County or real estate or anything at all, really, and that's a fair question. My name is Rich Curtis, and I've been selling homes here for over 20 years now, in markets ranging from the Great Recession to the COVID market insanity and everything in between. So when it comes to Dorado County real estate, I've got you covered. My goal with this channel is to help you make the highest quality real estate decisions you can from the comfort of your couch. So to that end, let's jump right back into our discussion of the real estate numbers in Dorado County so you can decide what to do next in real estate. All right, let's move into some of our individual towns and see how the towns are faring in this economy. We'll take a quick look at inventory for the whole county before we move into the individual towns. Like I said, we'll talk a lot about inventory because inventory is really what's been driving the market. It's basic high school economics, supply and demand. Since the COVID, we've just had record low inventories. So a strong seller's market is 2 months or less of inventory. A neutral market, in my opinion, is 4 to 6 months of inventory. You'll see our data program actually listed at 3 to 6 months, but I've been doing this 20 years in Dorado County. We don't really start seeing that kind of neutral, no advantage to anybody market mechanics until we get 4 months or above of inventory around here. And then of course, anything 6 months or above is going to be a strong buyer's market. Now to put that in perspective, at the height of the Great Recession, we had 18 months of inventory. And at the lows during the COVID market, in some cases, we had less than 1 month of inventory for a lot of that time between March of 2020, all the way really going through July of 2022 when the interest rates shot up and the whole inflation business started and the market shifted. So inventory is a big deal. You can see here for the county in general, inventory was down month over month, 12.9%, but year over year, it was up 26.3%. So we have seen an increase of 26% in the inventory. And as that inventory goes up, that tends to create an easing of prices. We tend to see prices start to come down, basic supply and demand, provided that we have the people to buy the homes. And as you can see with the sales volume being low, as the inventory is going up, we are going to see downward pressure on prices, in my opinion, due to that mechanism in the market. We are not seeing our static buyer pool gobbling up the inventory so quick that the inventory stays low now, which is what has kept prices from falling all the way since the pandemic. Now we are seeing the number of homes for sale go up and the number of sales go down, and that is going to put some downward pressure on prices. Is Zillow right that it'll be 1.7% across the board for everybody? Heck no. We're not going to see the same depreciation or price losses in South Lake Tahoe that we see in Placerville or that we see in Dorado Hills. These are wildly different markets. So let's go through the numbers. Jumping right into Placerville. So Placerville, we are at 30 sales for the month of March, and that is a year over year change of negative 11.8%. So again, sales are down in this case. So we saw sales being up for the county as a whole, but not keeping pace with how many new listings we're getting. But here, the dynamic's even worse. We are seeing active listings up 37.7% and home sales down 11.8%. So we're nowhere near keeping pace with the amount of new listings coming on the market in Placerville. And that is because of all that fear and uncertainty and doubt. Now we're seeing a median home price around $547 in Placerville, with us showing a 6.8% increase year over year. In my opinion, that number is a little high. We've been averaging over the last 12 months, $505,000 to $515,000 median home price in the greater Placerville area. And of course, these numbers get skewed by posting up some big numbers. So my guess is if we went granular listing by listing in those 30 listings, we just had some big ones, some multi-million-dollar ones pop, which skewed that median price up on us this month. You can expect that to be more in that 505 to 515. Some of the outliers have been 535. We'll see what that resets to next month, but I don't expect that median home price to stay at quite that level moving forward. 22 days on market. Again, pretty reasonable days on market, pretty quick, comfortable sale for sellers, but still way up from pandemic level, a week or less. deal. 99.2% sales to list price, so they're getting about what they're asking. But again, here we're in the 30% range. 35.8% of listings saw a price reduction in the month of March. But the big story here, I think I want you to focus on, is the fact that number of active listings is up 37%, but our sales are down 11.8%. And with the static buyer pool we've had for years and years, we just shouldn't be seeing that. That is a representation of buyers being nervous to move into the market, or buyers having had their down payment money slaughtered in the stock market and not wanting to move forward there. And that is the mechanism that if it continues, and if the gap, the delta there gets bigger, that's what's going to see some downward pressure on prices locally here as we move forward throughout the year and into our big summer buying season coming up. Look, if at the end of this video you still aren't sure what you should do, whether you should sell your home, whether you should stay, whether you should buy a home, whether you should wait, feel free to reach out to me via the contact information on your screen or in the description down below. Like I said, I've been selling homes here for over 20 years now, and I've helped hundreds of families just like yours, and I'm always happy to help. All right, now back to the numbers. The months of inventory, here's the story in Placerville. You can see in March of last year, we were around 2.3, 2.4 months of inventory. And in March of this year, we're up to, over 3.7 months of inventory over here. So we have seen a 69.1% increase in inventory year over year in Placerville. That is massive. That is a lot more inventory. And we should be seeing a lot more of that inventory being gobbled up by all these buyers that have been not able to find what they want, not able to get what they want, just not having enough homes for sale that meet their criteria over the last few years. We should really be seeing that getting gobbled up, and we aren't. Now, these are sort of lagging indicator numbers. So we're not seeing major price reductions now. 35% of homes having a price reduction last month isn't a big headline, a big scary deal. But these numbers that we're seeing, these are going to give us an indication of what's going to happen in the months to come. And these numbers are showing a softening real estate market locally here in Placerville. All right, let's jump into El Dorado Hills. Of course, our county is bookended by two sort of heavy hitter markets, with Placerville being in that, like I said, 505, 515 normal median as of today, 545, whatever that was. But down in El Dorado Hills, the median home price hovers nearly around $1 million. I think in a video I did a few months ago, it was around 980. Now, as you can see by this, in the month of March, it was 950. Then the other end of the spectrum up in South Lake Tahoe, that's a pretty high priced area as well. So the bookends, the east and west bookends of the county, kind of skew our county numbers. So let's look at El Dorado Hills here. 58 sales in the month of March, up 56.8%. 169 listings, up 38%. So in El Dorado Hills, we are still gobbling up the houses quicker than we're getting them on the market. They are showing a 3.1% decrease in home prices year over year. And I believe I can say with extreme confidence that's an outlier. We'll see over the next couple of months that number shift back to an appreciating number year over year. Now, by the end of 2025, we may see an overall decrease, an overall loss in property values in El Dorado Hills, but I don't think we have seen 3.1% over the last year. In fact, I know we haven't. We just, again, this one must have popped a couple of beater houses or a couple of houses in the older neighborhoods, a couple of fixer-uppers or flippers that popped and skewed the numbers down on us there. So I wouldn't, if you're my El Dorado Hills people and you're watching this, I wouldn't go, my house is worth 3.1% less than it was last year. That's not going to turn out to be accurate for you. The main story here, again, are these numbers. And El Dorado Hills right now is still doing pretty good, still having a pretty strong seller's market. 22 days on market, again, pretty good. They're getting about what they're asking for the house, and still there again in 35% of cases, people are having to do a price reduction. Let's take a look at the inventory numbers. Now here you can see in March of 2024, we're around 2.7. And in March of 2025, we're probably not much more, 2.8, 2.9. So we're up 3.7% year over year. So inventory is increasing year over year in El Dorado Hills, but not nearly to the extent that we saw in Placerville. We just saw 69% more inventory in Placerville. And there's going to be some seasonal stuff going on there that we see every year because we're in March. And May, June, July, August, moving into the summer selling months, we always see a big jump in inventory, but we're seeing a bigger jump in inventory than we historically would. Here in El Dorado Hills, We're not seeing that. The inventory is still staying low. A couple reasons for that, could be higher prices. So it's a whole different buyer pool down there. Another reason for that could be that because of those higher prices and the lock-in effect, these people aren't willing to give up their pandemic era interest rates in order to move on to another home, because it makes a much bigger difference on the loan values they have on homes near $1 million than it does on a home at $500,000. So the lock-in effect is stronger the higher the loan value you have. Of course, the lock-in effect, what I'm talking about, is just not wanting to give up those pandemic era interest rates. All right, let's check Pollock Pines. We're going to the other end of the spectrum. We just went from one of the most expensive areas of the county. Now we're going to jump into one of our most reasonable areas of the county. Pollock Pines generally is going to be around $385,000 or so median home price. And right now you can see it's showing up at $448,000 median home price with a 22.9% increase year over year. And that number is going to slip again. I know for a fact we just had a well over $1 million home close in Pollock Pines in an area that averages $385,000 or median $385,000. When you have a $1 million+ home pop, it skews the numbers pretty bad. So we'll see that number drop back down to the high threes, I think. But that is still, Pollock Pines doing pretty well. But let's look at the sales numbers. We have an increase in our active listings of 21% and a decrease in our sales of 27%. So there again, same thing we saw in Placerville. Number of listings are up, but sales are down because people are getting nervous. Now, Pollock Pines also is an area where we see a lot of vacation home buying. Pollock Pines is amazing. It is everything that's great about Tahoe at half the price. I can't say enough about it. You can check out a bunch of videos on the channel about Pollock Pines and what a great value for money it is. However, in economic times like this, people really pump the brakes on buying vacation homes. So that's going to be affecting those sales numbers in Pollock Pines. Also, the profile, the avatar of a vacation home buyer is going to be the type of person who likely has a lot of their net worth in the markets. And as such, they may have taken a bigger hit than others over the last 3 months with the stock market insanity. And that's going to be affecting Pollock Pines and that vacation market as well. Now, you'll see the median days on market at 114. Again, this is skewed by the luxury end of the market in Pollock Pines. It's a very disparate data set in Pollock Pines. We have your bread and butter in the high threes to mid fours, normal houses, reasonable, really affordable. And then we do have some really amazing luxury cabins up there. Now, at this moment, we have quite a few luxury listings in Pollock Pines, like more than I've seen maybe ever in the 20 years I've been doing this. We probably have 8 or 9 homes over $800,000 for sale in Pollock Pines, and we probably have 3 or 4 of them over $1 million and 1 over $2 million. And those ones are going to take a unique buyer in Pollock Pines. They're going to have longer on market times. They're going to sit there a while, and they have been sitting there a while. And as such, the median days on market for Pollock Pines has gotten skewed, just like that median home price got skewed. So if we set this at a maximum sales price of $600,000, these numbers would fall back into normal. And normal is going to look like 60 to 70 days on market for Pollock Pines and around 375, 385 for median home price. But again, the real story here is the difference between the increase in the number of active listings at 21% and the decrease in sales at 27%. That again is showing that softening of the market trend locally here because of all that FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt because of the economic insanity sort of coming out of Washington at the moment. Now, here's the inventory graph for Pollock Pines. You can see all the way back in March of 2024, Pollock Pines was less than 2.5 months of inventory, around 2.3, 2.4 months of inventory. And today they're sitting right on 4 months of inventory. So we have seen a 67.7% increase in inventory year over year in Pollock Pines. That's similar to what we saw in Placerville. I think Placerville was about 69%. Again, there's going to be a little bit of a seasonal aspect to this, but for the most part, this is an indication that number of listings are up, inventory's up, sales volume is down. Those are all things that point to a softening of the market and a potential downward pressure on home prices moving forward over the rest of 2025. Almost said 2024 there. Couldn't remember what year we're in. All right, so we're going on to Shingle Springs. Now, Shingle Springs is a real small town. If you're not a local, it's adjacent to Cameron Park. For out-of-towners, they're kind of indistinguishable, but Shingle Springs itself tends to have larger homes on more acreage that are more expensive than homes in Cameron Park. It is a very small data set when it comes to Shingle Springs. And essentially a statistically, easy for me to say, statistically irrelevant data set with 7 sales for the month of March. That being said, it is a market that gets a lot of interest up here. It is a beautiful place to live. A lot of people want to live there, so I thought I'd throw the numbers up for you. Anyway, take these numbers with a grain of salt because, again, it is a very small data point, statistically irrelevant amount of data coming out of Shingle Springs alone. To get anything relevant, we often have to lump the Shingle Springs and Cameron Park numbers together. But we had 7 sales in March. That's up 16.7%. So again, it's a statistically irrelevant amount at 7 sales, and that's even up 16.7% year over year for Shingle Springs. We have seen a decrease in the number of active listings in Shingle Springs here. So we have a decrease in listings and an increase in sales, which is a little different than what we're seeing in some of those other places. And again, this is just an indication of there's just not that much for sale down there. And whatever is for sale in Shingle Springs tends to get gobbled up pretty quick. If you haven't checked out Shingle Springs, you should watch some of the videos on the channel about it. It is a really incredible and beautiful place to live. You should check it out. Median home price is around $724,000. They're showing that down from last year. Again, like Dorado Hills, we must have had a couple of sort of beater homes pop and sell this year that shook those numbers up. That's not going to be an accurate number that floats out over the next few months. Median days on market is 12. It's still a really hot market in Shingle Springs. Like I said, things get gobbled up really quickly there. 99.8% sale to list price are getting about what they asked for the houses, and a little bit less price reductions in Shingle Springs, as you would expect with a little less volume and a more in-demand area. About 33% of listings on the market in March saw a price reduction down in Shingle Springs. Month of inventory for Shingle Springs, you can see over in March of 2024, we were looking at a little under 3%. That's probably 2.7, 2.8. And then all the way over here in March of 25, darn near the same, nearly flat. They are actually posting up a 3.3% decrease in inventory year over year for Shingle Springs. And that's going to be pretty consistent with the low volume, high interest. Things get gobbled up pretty quickly down there in Shingle Springs. This is still seller's market territory all day long here for Shingle Springs. But they are, because this data set is essentially statistically irrelevant, they are going to succumb to the forces that the rest of the county is feeling. So those trends that we're seeing in the bigger areas, the Placerville, the Pollock Pines, the Dorado Hills, those are the trends that are going to essentially dictate what's going on in the real estate market county-wide. So I'd focus more on those, even if you're in some of these smaller pockets that are getting a little bit of outlier in the data. I'm trying to highlight where those outliers are for you. Really, it's those trends of a larger number of listings and lower number of sales that we're really paying attention to. Another small town here, a little bit more volume than Shingle Springs, Camino, California, Apple Hill, 10 sales for the month of March, up 42%, almost 43, 42.9 year over year. And we have seen a 42.9% increase in active listings year over year. So Camino is doing right now what I would have expected every place to be doing based on what was happening before the trade war and tariff business started. Anytime we got a flood of listings on the market, the buyers jumped off the fence. We had a static buyer pool, gobbled up all the listings, sort of zero-sum game there when it came to increase in active listings and increase in sales volume. This is what I would expect to see. What we're seeing in those other markets is representative of that fear and uncertainty because of what's going on in the fiscal policy. That fiscal policy is flying off the Resolute desk quicker than you can say Sharpie these days, and it's got everybody on edge locally, nationally, and globally, and we're seeing that reflect in those other numbers. Camino here is showing a little insulated and posting up the type of market data I would expect to see if we didn't have somebody going on off with the trade war right now. Existing single family residence median home prices around $602,000 in Camino. They're showing that up 14% year over year. Again, there'll be a couple outliers, and that'll be a more reasonable lower number, but we did see some good gains in Camino over the last year. 32 days on market, great days on market. I love to see that. Not not too much stress or pressure on buyers, but still selling in a reasonable time for sellers not to get stressed and worried and start to think about price reductions. That's really good. And we're there right on the average for the area with that 35% of homes seeing a price reduction in the month of March, and they're bang on 100% sales to list price. They're pretty much getting what they asked for, not a lot more, not a lot less in Camino. These are the type of numbers. This is how the market should be functioning right now if we didn't have that external pressure from the trade war going on. Months of inventory in Camino. If you look towards the left end of the graph, March of 2024, a little over 2 months, maybe 2.3, 2.4 months of inventory. Now, this big bump here on the right is making things look a little screwy. We did have a big bunch of inventory come on the market in Camino, but as you could see in the last slide, it all got gobbled right back up. And it's hard to tell, but way over there on the right side, there's just a little tiny dot sticking out right at the 2 months of inventory mark, because we've dropped right back down to just above 2 months, 2.1 months of inventory in Camino as we sit right now. So that's actually, the inventory is down in Camino, down 83% year over year. And you can see when all that inventory came on, that big bump, it all got gobbled up, which is what we have typically been seeing ever since the pandemic up here. So Camino, it's kind of looking like we would expect it to look. Everything else is looking like it's been shook by the economic turmoil in our country. All right, we're going to end with the other bookend. We covered El Dorado Hills. That's the western boundary of the county. The eastern boundary of the county is South Lake Tahoe, right up to, it's not just the county boundary, it's state boundary too, with Nevada. And up in Tahoe, we're seeing this same discrepancy where active listings at 121 for March are up 31.5% year over year, but sales at 36 are down 18.2% year over year. More people listed, more people said, hey, I'm not affected by the lock-in effect. I'm going to go ahead and sell my property and risk having to take on a bigger interest rate. But the buyers weren't there. The buyers didn't show up for them and gobble up all those listings. And that, again, is the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Now, like we talked about for Pollock Pines, South Lake Tahoe is a big vacation market. So South Lake Tahoe is going to suffer more in this type of environment than other places. And we're going to see the same kind of things we're talking about in Pollock Pines, where the type of buyer up here has a lot of their net worth in the market and might have gotten totally annihilated over the last few months. Or even if they didn't, even if they have enough in the market that 10, 12% doesn't kill them, they still don't want to sell off at these prices, or they're feeling nervous. They're moving to cash for safety and security, and they're just not buying vacation homes. So we are seeing that here with sales being down. Days on market at 60 days on market, that's getting high. That's getting neutral market territory there at 60 days on market. We have a median home price of around 750 up in South Lake Tahoe. That's about normal for there for the last year. It's going to bounce anywhere from 735 to 785. But we've seen a 2% increase over the last year, which is a little low. I think actually over the next couple of months, we'd see that year over year number maybe bounce back into the 3 to 4% range. But by the end of this year, I expect we're going to see some losses again due to the softening that we're seeing if these numbers continue. Now let's look again. We are 98.4 list to sales price, so they're getting about what they're asking, and about on par with the price reductions at 36.4% of listings experiencing price reductions. Here's the inventory graph for South Lake Tahoe, and we're seeing it is up about 50% year over year. So South Lake Tahoe there again is seeing the number of active listings go up, the months of inventory go up, because the number of new sales is going down. And it's those numbers we're going to continue to watch to see if that trend continues. And if it does, that will represent, like I said, a significant softening of the market up here. So there you go. That's what's going on right now in the county. And the numbers are, frankly, a little weird. In a normal market, making predictions 3 to 6 months out is hard. In this market, making predictions 30 days out is really hard, with the tariffs going on again, off again, with them, bouncing all over the place, with China shutting down trade almost altogether with us, with Canada doing a bunch of retaliatory tariffs. There's a lot going on in the world and in the economy that's got people shook, and they're socking away money under the mattress, in a coffee can in the backyard, in the savings account, and people aren't doing as much financially as they were 4 to 6 months ago. So right now, the numbers don't look bad in El Dorado County. You haven't really posted up any real losses in terms of your home value. If you were going to sell right now, it might take you a little longer to find the right buyer. You might do one price reduction, but in general, you're going to get pretty close to what you're asking. But as you can see in those new active listings versus pending sales data and in the inventory data, we are staring down the barrel of a softening real estate market. And those numbers are, in my opinion, are going to get worse as the year goes on, unless we see a dramatic shift in the fiscal policy coming out of Washington. That's where we're at right now. Let me know if you like this video. Give it a like. Give us a subscribe if you want to see one of these a month. The data is always in the rear, so next month we'd be able to go over April data. If you want to see one of these a month, let me know in the comments down below. We'll start doing one of these a month for you so we can all track together the effects of what's going on in our economy on our local housing market so you can make the best and highest quality real estate decisions you can from the comfort of your couch. Hey, thanks for making it to the end with me. And if you're considering selling, but you really don't want to give up your pandemic era 2 to 3% interest rates, you can click this video right here on how to keep your 3% interest rates. And if you're a buyer and you're wondering whether now is the right time to buy with all this economic chaos, you can click this video right here to learn the 5 criteria that makes you a good, solid buyer in any market. Either way, thanks for watching. Thanks for making it to the end with me, and I'll see you on the next one.